Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla with Andrew Rogers. We are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha and ESPN Tri-Cities. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. You can stream the show live, see our bright and shining faces here on a Tuesday morning at Hurrdat Sports, YouTube and Twitter. Or if you want to follow along with me and Andrew Rogers, see what we're doing when we're not on the air, you can follow me. I'm at R.A. Lulla. He's at Andrew Rogers CC.
I love kickers.
He loves kickers. That's in his bio and everything. Loves kickers.
I wanted to see Tristan Alvano kick a 60-yard field goal last weekend.
I mean, you heard Rule, right? He said get to the 40, like I said.
Yep, no.
I
Rule,
said get to the 40.
Rule would have taken a chance if he was at the 50. I know it. I know it. Coach Rule, he's got that. He knows TA's got that dog in him, and he would have given him a shot. 3 seconds left. You're at the 50. You trot out Tristan Alvano.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't feel good about it. I don't like it.
A 67-yard field goal he could do. He's got the leg.
Sure.
Like, I know, like, you have that reaction because a 67-yard field goal is not a typical make for a college kicker, let alone an NFL kicker. Yeah. But when you have the leg to get there, where do you lay your chances? Would you lay them in the basket of one guy that can hit a big target, or would you put it in the hands of Harburg and for Nebraska to either run a lateral backyard play or a deep heave to the end zone when there's 18 bodies going up for the same football?
Yeah, so my limit would have been a 60-yarder. I would have let him try a 60-yarder. Anything other than that, I would have done a Hail Mary.
But if he's got the leg for 67, why not go the extra yards?
I know we've seen him in warm-ups and things like that do longer, but
I've seen him in a game hit a 57. So I know, and that was with plenty of distance.
I
know he could add 10 more yards.
High school, right? So you got different. Yeah. I know he's got the leg.
You're right. Yeah, that was when he was younger.
So it was. I'd let him go up to 60, maybe like 62. I can't get to 67.
Everybody's crazy.
I can't do it.
Shane,
I think we're trending.
I'm sitting next to a crazy person.
I think we're trending long. Okay, I say that because Matt Rule went 30 minutes. He's been going 30 minutes. He went 35 minutes yesterday.
I thought it was 36.
36 minutes. He's trending long. So we're trending long for 67.
My man. See, Shane, I like the way he thinks.
He's a Raiders fan. He doesn't know anything.
Daniel Carlson for Green Bay. That is right. He's on Green Bay. DC. Yeah, I think he hit the upright this past weekend. Former Raiders kicker.
It's tough. It's tough out there. But no, so I think the outside of the Alvano, obviously we disagree about his range, which is okay.
We don't disagree about range. We just disagree about decision.
Sure.
He can kick it that far.
Yeah, I think he's got the leg for it. It's just different in game. Like, it's just a different deal in game than in warm-up. So I probably wouldn't have gone past about 60, but that's just me. We'll never know. We'll probably never know.
Oh, that's not true. We'll figure it out.
We're gonna get him out there for a 67-yarder in game.
You know what's gonna happen is Nebraska is going to be chasing that 6th win. It's going to be the Iowa game, right? And everybody is going to be swallowing their stomach, and they're going to trot Tristan out there. Tie game, but they're going to trot him out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be from 64.
And I'll be like, see, I told you he doesn't have 67, only 64.
Yeah, and he's going to hit the back net. Halfway up
the back net. Before we went into the break, we were talking a little bit about the Harburg situation, and it does sound like from Rule's comments yesterday that he is, I would say that Harburg is the guy they're committed to as the one. I did think it was interesting that he mentioned Sims is getting reps with the ones as well, and that even Purdy had gotten some reps, although not as many with the ones, mostly with the 2s and 3s for him. I think the fact that Sims is still getting reps with the ones is interesting. And I know because of the way they do their stations, it allows for more reps to be experienced. But if there was no chance of Jeff Sims coming in, Harburg probably needs all the reps at one. Like, with what we've seen, he probably needs as many reps as you can get him. And maybe there's a like, hey, he gets his water break, whatever, so Sims gets his reps. I
Right.
don't know the logistics of it exactly, but I tweeted this out on Saturday during the game, and here's why I don't know necessarily that Harburg is unquestionably the guy. I think he's the guy this week, but you have a few comments on record from Rule that I think are interesting about Purdy in particular, because I think it would be hard to trot Jeff Sims back out at this point. I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it, but just the perception of it, I think, would be tricky. But some things that we know about Purdy. He was ahead of Harburg in fall camp. I think that matters because without an injury, he would have been the one we saw at the end of the game against Colorado as opposed to Harburg.
Somewhat, right? It matters somewhat because if I take the example of like the 49ers, Brock Purdy was obviously behind Trey Lance.
Yeah.
And because of an injury, Brock Purdy gets the call, and then Brock Purdy
he was behind Lance and Garoppolo last year, right?
But that's what I mean. Yeah. Like, so Harburg would have been the 3 because it would have been Sims, Purdy, Harburg.
And maybe Purdy doesn't do well. Maybe we see Harburg anyway.
So sometimes it's just circumstance.
Yes. But I do think that is something to keep in mind at the very least, is that at one point before he got injured, Purdy was above Harburg this fall. Number 2, Rule has said, and he seems to believe, they can win games with all 3 quarterbacks. He said that a bunch of times.
I think that's a little bit of coach speak.
Maybe, but he said that with Harburg too. And, they went 5-1 before, 5-2 now with Harburg as the starter. So it's like, I thought it was
a lot of that is defense, like that's carrying you to those wins.
And maybe that's why he thinks he can win games with any quarterback because of the defense, right? But it's something he said several times. And for the most part, he's been pretty truthful about his team. So I like to keep that in consideration. And he has said that Purdy is the best pure passer of the bunch. If you're going to have a game plan where you think you're going to need to pass the ball more, like obviously they thought they needed to pass more against Michigan State. Like Michigan State had a bad pass defense coming in. They feel like, from what Coach Rule said, that the option's starting to get scouted better and they're not getting as much out of it. I think that's something you have to consider because the more Harburg throws the ball, the less comfortable I get with him being the starter. When he's throwing the ball 11 times a game, I feel okay. When he's throwing the ball like 18 times, I'm like real iffy. When he's throwing it 28, it makes me a little nauseous.
He's the quarterback in Nebraska.
So that's where it's like I agree with you for the immediate future. It sounded like Harburg is still the guy unquestioningly. I think they have to be thinking about the rest of the situation, though, because the turnovers have not gotten better.
Sure. And, this staff's always 5-10 steps ahead.
Sure.
We've seen that all year. One thing you said there was consideration, like keeping things in consideration. I think that's where everybody kind of sits today.
Yeah.
Waiting, like you're reserving judgment until you see if Harburg responds this week. That's something I spoke with TK about a little bit yesterday, and he was mentioning, because even yesterday, I think he was a couple hours ahead of everybody else when he's like, I'm pretty sure that based on how Coach Rule has done his business at Temple and Baylor, that he's going to stick with one guy and he's not going to shuffle guys in and out. But he's like, I'm not going to cast my vote on that just yet, because who knows what Harburg brings this week, right? If he doesn't respond, then you really have to reevaluate. But going back to the point on what you said about Jeff Sims getting reps with the ones, the way I look at it, outside of a like, hey, he's going in while Harburg gets a water break, it may be something like this coaching staff wants to utilize Sims in a game and do sort of like a
package play.
What like Derek Carr and Taysom Hill do in the NFL. Maybe that's what you get out of Jeff Sims. Now, Jeff Sims isn't playing tight end, but maybe it's hey, we're going to bring in Jeff because we like the way he runs more than we like the way he gets up the field quicker than Harburg, because we know Harburg is a little slow when it comes to changing directions, but maybe it just provides a different look. And I think that's why he's like giving us nuggets of, we're giving these guys 1 reps.
Coming up next, we got more Hurrdat Sports Radio.